thank goodness I don't have to cover as many areas as John has to cover and across the world, and we don't have to talk about marketing over in the Canary Islands, because if this shows anything, that some of the challenges that we're dealing with right now in the Lake County area, as we'll get further on in the presentation. But I know a lot of you were probably up to looking forward to seeing Glenn Proctor today. I'll do my best to fill his shoes. My name is Todd Azevedo. I've been with the Ciotti Company for 11 years. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Ciotti Company, we have 8 offices around the world in every single major grape growing region, 22 dedicated brokers. We find this to be the best possible thing for our clientele, to have the timely information to give them the best choice and make the best decisions they can for their own domestic products, and also just in their globally, their importing and exporting markets as well. Today, looking at as a grape growing commission and stuff like that, I figured we'd do a little bit of something that's happening in the retail world for Lake County in California. We'll go a brief overview of what happened in the grape world. I think a lot of people, you see what happened, or experts in this room, what happened in the grapes up in Lake County this year. And then heavily laying on the bulk side, where we're finding a lot more problems and a lot more challenges with Lake County in the bigger part of the supply and demand. This is a slide that I've taken from the Silicon Valley Bank for a number of years. They do the survey with all of their clientele, and I just think it's very interesting. This is the price point region that Lake County exists in for a lot of their bottled goods. I think out of the 5 categories they have up there, 4 out of the 5 categories, if you look at the dark blue line, which is the sales growth, they're all in double-digit numbers, and that just goes to show you that the bullishness of the industry and what people are thinking, especially on the higher-priced bottled goods. Again, this is the statewide grape crush report, and this last year, we had just a little bit over 4 million tons. The one thing to notice that the 2015 harvest was a little bit difficult, obviously a little bit short. What we found in that season was there wasn't a lot of the right grapes in the right places, or in the higher demand places that we found out. This 2016 harvest solved a couple of those problems, but again, because we got flipped upside down in 2015, it created some supply demands and some higher prices that some people weren't used to. This is just further tells a story about what happened between the 2015 and 2016 crop. This is the regional total tons. Obviously, Lake County fits into that North Coast area with Napa, Sonoma, Mendocino. We break it down, and it's that yellow line, that yellow bar on the graph right there. Just goes to show, in the areas that were in the highest demand, in the Central Coast and in the North Coast, they were the smallest crops of those years comparative to the other years. Just looking at the 2016 grape market, just to take a quick overview of what we're dealing with today, some of the early activity in the 2017, what's going on with buyers and sellers both. And then we do these presentations a lot, myself, Glenn Proctor, John Ciotti in my company, who speak a lot in public events, and everybody always wants to look at the pricing. So we're always going to show the pricing at the very end. I'm a visual learner. Glenn Proctor, I stole this slide from him. I've used it many a times. Everybody makes fun of the teeter-totter or the fulcrum. Like I said, I'm visual. When I start to look at this, this makes total sense to me, right? Buyers are heavy on one side, very active, want to be a part of this market. You got a lot of sellers trying to fill those gaps, trying to fill those holes. This little tiny seller right here is probably the one guy that does have a grape to sell out there, which doesn't really exist in this point in time. We're fairly highly contracted as we talk about grapes, and in California especially. Overall, in the 2017, there's early activity in the 2017 grape market. We've noticed, it's similar to basically the Q1 of 2016 is to have same things happen in 2017. A lot of activity, a lot of buying, people wanting to buy specific things in the specific places, specific appellations. Of course, Cabernet, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay driving that demand. For every winner, there's a loser, unfortunately. Zinfandel has been that one variety that we've struggled with, more so because of the 12 and 13, 14 harvests. We've got a little bit backed up on the bulk wine side and hasn't forced as many buyers to be active in the Zinfandel market. In 2017, because of coming off the short 2015 harvest, we were at an all-time high in pretty much contracted grapes. We kind of walked into the 2017 season probably between 85, and in some cases 90% contracted in the state. We can't say that even going back after the short 2011 harvest and stuff like that, where there was a lot of activity going into 2012. We saw the state probably at a 70, maybe even a 75% contracted rate. So like I said, we're at an all-time high when it comes to contracts, pricing, and non-availability at this point in time. Obviously, with the long-term grape contracts and what the Ciotti company does and a lot of those, there is also a bonus involved in some of those if they're long-term contracts. So that stability should remain strong over the next couple of years. And we'll talk more about this on the bulk wine side because this is a challenge, especially when you talk about the Lake County market at this point, is the considering of changing of sources, the availability and the pricing and the challenges that you look forward to when you start to move your product around. Of course, one of the things, and please don't feel free like you have to write all these numbers down and to keep up with the speed of the slides that I'm changing. We'll always produce this on the Ciotti website if you want to go back and explore the numbers a little bit more. But obviously, this is Lake County and North Coast pricing for things, and your two neighbors, Napa and Sonoma, and some of the pricing that you see on some of their grapes. Now, what the Ciotti company does best is obviously we do a lot of bulk wine, and we try to explain, especially to a group that is of grower ilk. So get into a little bit more because I don't think a lot of people get to experience this market as much as possible. We've done this slide for a number of years at Ciotti. I enjoy this slide. The thing that mainly recognizes on the far right, and that is we believe in January after any harvest is the largest volume of bulk wine loaded into the market at that point in time. So we take a little snapshot of what has happened. And after in January of 2015, after all those long harvests and stuff like that, we were at an all-time high in domestic bulk wine available, just a little bit over 33 million gallons available domestically. And if you just go straight down to 2017, in 2 calendar years, down to January 2017, it's over half of that volume has disappeared at that point in time and has moved us in from a long position into a balance to even in some cases a short position on bulk supply. This is just further telling you the truth about the North Coast bulk wine industry. Obviously, the Lake County, Mendocino, Napa, and Sonoma are loaded into this thing, and just the trend line that you can see going from the 16 to 17 is just a major difference in how much volume is actually available in the market. Some of the savvy audience members out there are probably looking at it going, well, 2016, January, that's a lot of Cabernet bulk that's sitting on the market right there after that short 2015 harvest, and you're wondering what that is. This is a business, and there are a lot of opportunistic sellers out there, and we have a lot of non-traditional buyers that we deal with in this market that are non-bricks and mortar brands that we deal with, and a consistent conversation that still happens today. They're, Todd, we're into our Cabernet, Napa Cabernet for $30 a gallon. You mean to tell me that I don't have to buy bottles, corks, capsules, labels, marketing, packaging, distribution, and you can sell it for $60 a gallon, twice as much? Here's my samples. Go off. I'll see you later. Send the check. Currently, looking at the North Coast portion of the bulk wine industry and just breaking it down by varietal, just to give an idea for everybody individually that's sitting out there that might not grow everything or do everything. Chardonnay is in high demand. In fact, obviously, Russian River is a sought-after place. But if you look in our bulk inventory currently right now, Chardonnay, I couldn't even find you any Lake County or Mendocino County Chardonnay available in the bulk market for the current 2016 vintage. Sauvignon Blanc is in large demand. There is a little cocoon out there that exists, and that's called Lake County. At the end, it was a decent harvest last year. You obviously had 4,000 more tons than you did in 2015, and you had 2,500 more tons than your next largest crop, which was in 2013, the Sauvignon Blanc. So it has caused a little bit of a stall on the Sauvignon Blanc side. Merlot goes as Cabernet goes. The more Cabernet you sell, the more Merlot we're going to sell too. That's the biggest and baddest blender that goes into that product. Again, Zinfandel, because of the older vintages on bulk wine and because it's been sitting around for a little bit longer, has caused that to slow that market down a little bit and decrease on some of the pricing. Not for current stuff, more so for the older vintage stuff, because we'll go over a little bit of pricing here in a second. and Pinot Noir all over the state, and then Cab is king. Cab will continue to be king and moving into the future, especially for Lake County. The overall market right now, as the state goes, we're looking at a balanced market. You see what happened in that 2016 volume that's loaded up into the Ciotti Company inventories. The 2016, the next two actually go hand in hand. The 2016 crop and the severe shortage in 2015, and then the challenge that buyers find finding the right price for the right wine and the right appellation. Again, like I'll mention, the 2015 harvest, what the challenge was, the higher demand areas that we had, the grapes weren't there. In 2016, it solved a little bit of those problems. We did have some of those grapes actually did end up appearing and helping out alleviate some of the problems that we were dealing with. And I'll mention again at the very end, it's a saying that we have at the Ciotti Company we stole from Chris Welsh, who's one of my partners, is that no tree grows to the sky. In 2012 and 2013 and 2014 after those crops, a lot of marketers, especially like I said, non-traditional non-bricks and mortar buyers and stuff like that, built programs off of the pricing and the availability of bulk wine that came off of all those vintages. And they thought that market was just going to keep on going like that. Well, the 2015 harvest came along, turned it upside down. Everybody did a 180 and kind of going back in the other direction. You see what happened to some of the supply and demand. And the one thing that it does do, and the bulk market is known for, is making prices change overnight. It is a real-time thing. The pendulum doesn't swing very slow, or it never swings slowly in the bulk wine industry. You can have one night, if someone decides to exit their program in the North Coast or in Lake County, their Lake County Cab program, and move it to California, that leaves a big void in there that to fill up for some of those products and some of the supply that it will exist out there because that large brand leaves the area. And the climate that we're in right now with the grape market and stuff like that pendulum is kind of swinging very slowly, only for the simple fact that we've had a lot of 3 and 5 year contracts at historical high prices and stuff like that. That market is very stabilized at this point in time. And I don't think this goes for anything. If you're selling hammers or cell phones or bulk wine, grapes, or concentrate, buyers always feel like they're paying too much, and sellers always feel like they're selling too cheap. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. This is we like, again, I know a lot of people like to see the pricing and what happens out there, and again, you don't feel like you have to write all these down. But this is the notice is the black numbers are the pre-harvest prices for 2015 bulk wine, and people trying to empty tanks and get ready for the 2016 harvest, and then a snapshot of before 2016 pre-harvest. The one thing to notice is that in a lot of cases, the pricing, the floor or the ceiling of the 2015 harvest is now the floor of the 2016 harvest, if that makes sense. So in some cases, a lot of these products went up 30 to 50% in pricing in just one calendar year for bulk wine. Made it very tough and very difficult for Lake County, especially in that coastal region where you guys exist. Just look at Merlot and Pinot Noir and Cabernet. For a lot of these guys who built programs based upon the 12 and 13 harvests and the pricing during those times. I don't know any industry that can keep up with those kind of increases, like I said, 30 and 50% increases in prices and have it be sustainable. With all these challenges, because of supply, especially in Lake County or the North Coast in general, and the pricing constraints that are happening around the North Coast, you got a lot of these brands that are always having, this is a daily conversation we have in our office with a lot of clientele. Big, small, medium wineries all along the way are asking these same questions or having the same thought process of what they're going to do and where they're going to go next. This new and vibrant market supply, this is like, is the grass greener? Can I go from Lake County to North Coast? Can I go from North Coast to Paso Robles with my Cabernet program? Will I be able to take my consumer with me? Will that all work for us in this supply world that we're getting constrained on? And then the next two, wineries rationalizing supply, brand position, maintaining margin, and brand growth all kind of go hand in hand. Too many times they're going, hey, I got my Napa Cabernet program. I can't afford to be in Napa anymore. Can I go to Lake County and be able to do this? Can I position my product to be up in Lake County? Can I get the same margin that I was experiencing in Napa County? And better yet, is there availability? Is it scalable? can I grow my brand? Is there a potential for me to have growth? And these are a lot of questions that, you know, we try to answer. We don't know until after a certain harvest, but this is a continuing thing. What options they do have, big, small, and medium producers, and this goes for all of them, is the first thing they always think about is raise the bottle price and limit sales. And start to slow down that growth a little bit, just to control your margins and to see where you are revenue-wise. Adjusting the sourcing strategy is always a big deal, and trying to do it mostly around the same lines of, can I keep consistent quality? Will my consumer follow me? Will my retailer or distributor stay with me if I do decide to do this? And the big push recently, especially with the success of some of the brands out there like Josh and Got and Butter, these things of this new premium brands source for California sourcing has a lot of people thinking about how they can get there. How can they reposition a new brand, or how can they reposition their current brand to get to an arena where the pricing is a little bit more secure and the supply is a lot easier and the scalability and the growth is a lot easier. And there's anything I can leave you with today for just a bit of information is the top 7 producers, the top 7 accounts that exist domestically and stuff like that control 73% of the market space. So that's very rare air when you start to think about all the rest of the producers out there that exist in California and how much little space they have to compete in. I'm a visual guy, like I said, and when I start to look at this is one of those, how we scalability and focus of how brands are going and stuff like that. And at the very top, obviously, Napa with the highest price and the smallest availability, or the least amount of availability by price is the thing. And you can see how it kind of tiers down from there. And the push to all get down to the blue area, that coastal California region, where the pricing is a little bit easier on the eyes for the producer, and to create some better margin, but also to be able to source your product. You're not tied to one area or one district or one county. Marketing-wise, especially going on in Lake County these days, it's a new and vibrant marketplace. The one thing at Ciotti that I can say that it's been encouraging, even with the high prices and the lack of inventory that's out there, is you still have a lot of buyers, producers, marketers still coming to this market and looking not just for current supply, but future supply. I mean, pushing it out even further on beyond 20, 21, 22. It's very encouraging to see those kinds of things. We haven't seen that in the past, even in other short harvests and stuff like that. Getting creative with sourcing, it's always a thing. Where's the next best thing? Where's the next best place for us to be? Where's the next best place where we can create some sustainable margin and make more money? Obviously, that's every producer's goal. I think that's everybody's goal in this industry. Longer term contracts will keep that great pricing sustainable for the near future. No tree grows to the sky. There's a ceiling on everything. We've seen it in the housing markets, or we're now getting a feeling of it in the grape wine world, that we're at historical high prices for bulk wine and grapes at this time. So no tree grows to the sky. Just like in 2013 and 2014, when these marketers thought they were going to build these brands off the cheap pricing and the inventory that was available, that came to a screeching halt in 2015. So again, always remember, no tree grows to the sky. And then the last two, just because of a global-based thing, we've seen this with the cost of goods for California getting so high and prices of bottles getting so high. There's some voids out there that we're leaving behind, and it's prime territory for imports to come in and bottled imports to come in and take advantage of these segments where they can fit into these segments of the market that California has exited. So there's always an opportunity with the strength of the dollar for more bottled imports to come into this thing. And again, with social media and education of wine, and you see here John talking about what's going on around the world and stuff like that. These new world appellated wines are really focused on trying to be in this market. Everybody wants to be in this market here and compete against the likelihood, like I said, of our premium brands here in Lake County and especially the North Coast. In your packet today, you received a little letter about we do these handful of reports every single year. So we do a California report. We do about quarterly, where we try to do it quarterly. We're not exactly perfect about that, but it's a snapshot. It's a couple pages long of what's going on around California: buying, selling, pricing. It's an interesting little read once you catch it. And then we do a monthly report for around the world, and this could exist in anywhere from buyers and sellers in each individual country, current market for bulk wine, trends on pricing. It could even get into weather, politics, and sports, what's going on in that current country right now, which will affect all the grape wine world. I appreciate your time. I hope I answered some questions, or I hope I posed some other questions, and if I can answer any, thank you very much. I appreciate it.